السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله اثاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل إلا تنفروا يعذبكم عذابا أليما ويستبدل قوما غيركم ولا تضروه شيئا والله على كل شيء قدير إلا تنصروه فقد نصره الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا فأنزل الله سكينته عليه وأيده بجنود لم تروها وجعل كلمة الذين كفروا السفلى وكلمة الله هي العليا والله عزيز حكيم صدق الله العظيم.
أحسن التكبير. Allah bless you, Luqman. Allahumma ameen. So we are going to share, inshallah, some reflections, couple of minutes from the brothers in here, and then we open the floor. If you want to participate with anything, what does hijrah mean to you? What kind of lesson that you learned from al-hijrah, or anything that you feel you want to share with everybody, inshallah, you may do that. We start from my right hand side there, brother Dr. Khalid Mahmoud, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Although I think one can learn a lot of lessons from this hijrah, the thing that I'm going to talk about is that whenever you are faced with your enemy or opponent, you have to use intelligence. You need to outsmart the enemy and outwit the enemy, and then you succeed. When Hazrat Muhammad first left his house to visit Abu Bakr, to let him know about the plan, he went in the middle of the day when it was hot and everybody was inside their home and they were sleeping because at that time it's just too hot to get out. And he left at that time taking advantage of that, and he went to visit Abu Bakr to notify him of the plan that they're going to be leaving that night. Then when he left his house, he first went to south instead of going north. As you know, Medina is north of Makkah. It's about 200 miles of Makkah, and it's on the north side. But instead of going north, he decided to go south toward this Harisor, which is about 3 miles or so from Makkah, but it's on the south side. So he was trying to kind of deceive the enemy so they won't know that. Then his daughter, the daughter of Abu Bakr, Asma bint Abu Bakr, she used to bring food to him and to Abu Bakr. Now she was pregnant, she used to tie the food around her waist and then put a cloak over her body, so people would think she's just an old, fat, pregnant lady. They wouldn't worry about her. But she was actually carrying the food every day to both of them in that car. Then his son, Abu Bakr's son, Abdullah, he used to go there every evening and bring all the news from Makkah to let them know what the enemy was planning. So this was all planned out ahead of time. And then his servant, his name was Amir bin Rahira, he used to take his goats in the evening time and go on the same path where Abdullah used to go, so that he would cover up the tracks of Abdullah so that the enemy wouldn't know which direction they were going. And he would also provide milk to both of them. So this was all planned out. So the point is that anytime you're facing your enemy, you need to make plans. Don't just start off and go and, you need to use your intelligence and outsmart and outwit your enemy. And that's the way. And then God will, of course, help you with that. But God wants us to use our common sense, which is actually a rare sense, so that you can get the most out of it. So I think I'll stop at this point and give it over to my brother.
So the first point, if I may summarize this, is planning was so clear in the hijrah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all aspects. Brother Khalid, I just ask everybody to keep it as short as possible. Brother Khalid, Dr. Khalid touched on a couple of points, but if you really study it for yourself, you will see how well planned the Prophet ﷺ was to make it successful from A to Z in all aspects. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Khalid. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I will just add to what Dr. Khalid mentioned. The way I look at hijrah, honestly, it's a little bit different. Hijrah is a continuous process. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam established Islam, established the first civil society, first Muslim country by establishing hijrah. And frequently I ask, when I talk about this subject, I ask people and the audience, why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did immigrate? Because a lot of time the answer comes to me out of persecution in Mecca. And that answer is not true. Because Yunus alayhi salam, he escaped persecution, he was punished. No prophet is allowed free without permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He immigrated to establish the first society with the rule and regulation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just I will shed light about the word hijrah, which every one of us should continuously do hijrah on daily basis, on monthly basis, to immigrate from batil, evil, to haqq. If we don't do that, we are not following the step of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A little bit light about at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Two superpowers at that time, controlling the whole universe and no rules of Allah, worshipping idols and worshipping Caesars and kings. And at that time, everything was worshipping everything but Allah, and a lot of straying away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to bring the society at large, including us, back into the religions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to migrate from evil to good and to establish the society. Because he liberated a human being by taking him from idol worshipper to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the message to me of hijrah, which I will really ask all the youth and my brother and sisters to remember that the daily meaning of hijrah, to leave evil and haram, to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which brother Sheikh Amr told me to connect that to the reality what's going on. I feel we are, as Islamic movement in the whole universe, we are going back right now into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At least I see that in Syria or Sham area, when we are going from slavery to one slogan, we have no one but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the meaning of hijrah, regardless of the sacrification going on. Very painful, but we have to remember the real meaning of success فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز. Success is to leave or stay away from hellfire and be close to paradise, and that's the real successful hijrah, and that's the real success in this life. And hopefully, I wish to myself and you a successful immigration on a daily basis from evil to good deed. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Takbir.
Assalamu alaikum. Imam Bukhari narrated in the hadith, Sahih, Aisha relates also the same hadith, and she's saying that, describing the revelation of the Prophet ﷺ when he came from Allah, Muhammad ﷺ. The first revelation, and everybody knows the story, when Jibreel came to him in cave Hira, God Hira, and he told him to read, and he said, I'm not a reader, I don't know how to read. Then when he went back home, he was kind of scared and shocked, some new experience for him. He went to his wife, and then his wife suggested to take him to Waraqah bin Nawfal, her cousin, who used to be a Christian, doesn't worship idols, muwahhid, he used to follow the Abrahamic faith of only one God. When he described him, etc., then he told him that this is the angel who used to come to the prophets. Now, everybody knows this story, but the lesson I would like to refer to is coming right now. He said, Ya Muhammad, I wish I am alive when your people will kick you out from Mecca. The Prophet asked him, they will kick me out. Everybody knows Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's the trustworthy, al-Amin, al-Sadiq. He used to be, he's the one who solved this feud and the fight over who can put the black stone in the Kaaba when they rebuild it again. So he is the most trustworthy person in Mecca. Everybody loves to be friendly. Everyone knows him. So how dare they will do that? So he asked a question, they will kick me out. This is the first day of Islam when the revelation came to Qur'an. He said, anyone who comes with the same message, people will be against him. The lesson I would like to point to all of us, and to myself first, is the nature of this da'wah. طبيعة هذا الدعوة. It's not filled with red carpet and flowers, red flowers and roses and all that stuff. Means he will have a struggle. He has to sacrifice. He has to put effort. So nothing comes easy, nothing comes cheap. Even Islam, even Al-Jannah. So the lesson I would like to point to my brother and sister to learn that from the first moment when Islam being revealed, and Waraqah told him that what you expect in Ya Muhammad, something is not rosy, something very hard. Even you will be losing your house, you will be kicked out. That's one lesson. And the other one, I'll make it brief, is the role of Muslim women in Islam. It's very important, and people always criticize and attack Muslim and Islam that they ignore women, they are classified second class and all that junk stuff, which is not true. Well, as Brother Khalid, he said that Asma used to be the one who carried the food. There are, at that time, 78 Sahabi in Mecca. Anyone can go through that. But that's her role as a Muslim woman to do that. And then, the best role is, the best model, and to understand the role of Muslim woman, is Khadija herself. When he came to her scared and shocked, surprised by the event, when the angel came to him, Khadija did not take him somewhere else. She chose very carefully Waraqah. Why? What has Waraqah special different from any other person in Mecca? She did not take him to the head of the soothsayer, Al-Arrafin in Mecca, or the custodian of the Al-Uzza, Allah, those idols in Mecca. She did not take him to the doctor, she took him to Waraqah because Waraqah has knowledge of previous religions like Christianity and other faiths. So she knows exactly, so that tells us the role of Muslim woman is very essential, very important, starting with our mother, al-Mu'mineen Khadija radiallahu anha, and then going to Asma and all of them. وصلى الله
I want to talk about implication of Hijrah in our life very briefly. The most important thing why Hijrah happened. when I read about it, there is only one thing. If Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam compromised on that, there was no need of hijrah and there was no persecution of the believers. And the kuffar, they offered that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that just leave the tawheed. Do not say that there is no partner with Allah. We give you everything, whatever you like. And you know the stories when they presented him that we will make you king, we will give you the, all the treasure, whatever you like. So we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not compromise on that. They had to leave everything there and leave their city. When he was leaving Makkah, he was outside the Makkah and he addressed the Makkah and he said that I know that if your residence there did not, make me leave it, I was never going to leave it. That's what so much he loved his place, but he had to leave it. So one thing is tawheed in our life. We can be whatever we can be and we can do whatever we do for Islam, but if we have shirk in our aqidah, then we lose everything. So this is the first lesson from Hijrah, that tawheed is the most important thing and we can sacrifice anything for that. We should be ready. This is something we cannot compromise. The other thing with hijrah comes from a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the example of a hijrah, mentioning something very important in Islam, which is intention, niyyah. If in our actions, if we are not pure and our intention is not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything gets destroyed. So we see how great action is hijrah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he mentioned about intention, he related it to hijrah. Because he said, innamal a'malu binniyat, the actions depend on intention, wa innama likulli imrin ma nawa, and for the person is what he wants. Then he said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And whoever migrates for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, his migration is for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. Means there is no big science. You can judge yourself why you are doing this. If it is for Allah and His Messenger, this is for Allah and His Messenger. And he said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. And anyone who is doing hijrah, migration, for worldly benefits or for marrying someone, then his migration is what he is migrating for. So number one, tawheed. Number two is the intention. If the intention is not right, the hijrah, which is such a great action, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving the example that if it's not for Allah and His Messenger, it is not. And the last thing, the implication, the most important thing which my brother also pointed out is what hijrah is in our life. Remember, the person who makes hijrah, what we call him? What we call the person who makes hijrah? Muhajir. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is making all of us muhajir, giving us that reward if we follow that. We might say, well, if we were there at the time of hijrah, we will go with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will do this and this. Yes, we can still do that. And I will conclude with this hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-muhajiru man hajara ma nahallahu an. The muhajir, the migrator is the one who migrates from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited. So if we really want to learn these lessons and apply the hijrah in our life, we should see what is disobedience in our life and what displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should migrate away from that. We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah helps us to understand this and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to apply these lessons in our life.
We may have a quick briefing here with Nasheed, inshallah, from from Brother Dr. Nahas and Dr. Yahya. Come on, please. Where's Dr. Nahas?
I thought this
Dr. Nahas.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. لغة الكلام كما رأيت على خجلا 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 ولولا حب محمد لم أتكلم. يا هجرة المصطفى والعين باكية والدمع يجري غزيرا من مآخيها. يا هجرة المصطفى هيجت ساكنة من الجوارح كاد اليأس يطويها. هيجت أشجانا والله فانطلقت منا حناجرنا بالحزن تأويها. هاجرت يا خير خلق الله قاطبة من مكة بعدما زاد الأذى فيها. هاجرت لما رأيت الناس في ظلم وكنت بدرا منيرا في دياجيها. هاجرت لما رأيت الجمر منتشرا. هاجرت لما رأيت الجهل منتشرا والشر والكفر قد عما بواديها. هاجرت لله تطوي البيد مصطحبا خلا وفيا كريما النفس هاديها. هو الإمام أبو بكر وقصته رب السماوات رب السماوات في القرآن يرويها يقول في الغار لا تحزن لصاحبه فحسبنا الله فحسبنا الله فحسبنا الله فحسبنا الله ما أسمى معانيها.
I just need to ask a favor from everybody in the room. You may take some dessert or drink, but we really need to be quiet. The event is still going on. Kids, adults, everybody. Just join us, inshallah, and follow this.
هاجرت لله تبغي نصر دعوتنا وتسأل الله وتسأل الله وتسأل الله نجحا في مبادئها. هاجرت يا سيد الأكوان متجها نحو المدينة دارا كنت تبغيها. هذه المدينة قد لاحت طلائعنا والبشر من أهلها يعلون واصيها. أهل المدينة أنصار الرسول لهم في الخلد دور في الخلد دور أعدت في أعاليها. قد كان موقفهم في الحق مكرمة لا نستطيع لنا وصفا وتشبيها.
So we continue, inshallah, and again, I ask the same favor from everybody, please just pay attention to what's going on. Dr. Abdul Rahman.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. وأصلي وأسلم على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد ابن عبد الله الصادق الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هديه ونهج نهجه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد أحبتي في الله, my participation will be different than our brothers, and my participation will be a qasida, a poem, which cannot be really translated because it won't give the same taste that in Arabic. So I'm really apologize for those who do not understand Arabic. So I'm going to say it in Arabic, inshallah. القصيدة بعنوان قريش تمادت. قريش تمادت بظلم النبي فقامت إليه تريد القتال. ومن كل قوم رجال وسيف ونار العناد تزيد اشتعال. ولكن ربي عزيز حكيم رؤوف رحيم أنام الرجال. فلما أفاقوا أقروا جميعا بأن مناهم بعيد المنال.
Please be quiet in the room. I'm sure this is the way it's gonna work. Go ahead.
فلما أفاقوا أقروا جميعا بأن مناهم بعيد المنال. ولكن تمادوا بحقد غبي فقاموا برفع لواء الضلال. وآذوا كثيرا محب النبي فكانت دماهم لديهم حلال، وجاء قضاء الإله إلينا ونحو المدينة شد الرحال. مضوا عن ديار لكم عمروها وكل المتاع وكل العيال، ولبوا لداعي الإله نداء التآخي فنعم الوصال. وهل النبي كبدر منير أضاء البلاد ورب الرجال، أقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة، فهيا أرحنا بها يا بلال. بنى دولة الحق سر الحياة، أقامت بلادا قرونا طوال، فكانت دليلا لكل العلوم وصرحا كبيرا يفوق الخيال، وكانت لكل الدروب سراجا ففيها الحياء وفيها الجمال. وصرنا نعز بدين الإله ونحن لنا بالرسول امتثال. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
I am not sure if I can translate this, but I will try. The qasida, the poem starts, Quraysh grow arrogant, the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ. Quraysh grow arrogant and showed every kind of hostility for the Prophet ﷺ. But on the other side was Allah, supporting him. Yes, sir. Thank you. Quraysh was there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was on the other side with the Prophet ﷺ. He moved on from Mecca to Medina and he established his community in there. He built the men, he built the society sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And from there light reached everywhere. That's, summary of everything he said. Jazakallah khair. You want to share something else?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu taslima ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alu al-hazna idha shi'ta sahla. Sahla lana wa la tuhayna wa ta'arifin. Actually, there is not supposed to make any khafir or something like this. I'm just supporting Dr. Manhas for Inshad. But there's two things I want just to share very quick. They just came to my mind. Number one, for me, the hijrah, there's two kinds of hijrah. There's hijrah to qulub and hijrah to accept. The hijrah for our heart and the hijrah for our body. And for sure, what's al-mu'awwal alayh, what is the most important, the hijrah to qulub. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal guide us in the Quran. He says, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنِّي مُهَاجِرٌ إِلَى رَبِّي. So that's the real meaning of the hijrah. And as my uncle said, it's that's not like one-time hijrah. It's not only on daily based concept, it's like on a brief concept, on every moment concept. So we should check our heart every moment, every second to see if that concept inside our heart, very clear. And this is the first point I want to share. The second point, I want to talk about it. I know everybody kind of talking about the concept of hijrah, but we cannot talk about concept of hijrah without talking about concept of nusrah. There is two concepts here, they come together, and they are very important to have them together. We cannot separate them, I believe, because without the nusrah, there is no power for the hijrah, and without hijrah, there is no meaning for the nusrah. And when we have them together, that's the real power and the successful will be. It's kind of, for me, it's like if we imagine it's like a body with the soul. The soul is the hijrah. We should have that concept of hijrah inside our heart. That the soul, the spirit of the body. The body is the nusrah concept. So every one of us, or every Muslim should have these two concepts together. Like the concept of the hijrah inside our heart, we should always make sure it's in our heart. Check that every moment. And the concept of the nusrah in our body, in our knowledge, in our money, we should check that also to see if we are doing our duty on the nusrah base. Because as I said, without nusrah, I'm talking about the nusrah and ansar, I'm not talking about anything else. So just to make it clear. they chant the name. So that's the point for me. Like the concept of Nusra is also very important to clear that point, to get the real fruit of this like event, the Hujrah. As I said, it's non-stop process for the Hujrah, non-stop process for the Muslim. Assalamu alaikum.
Please help me. We can't have it quiet for a few minutes. We cannot have our kids sitting for a few minutes, so we listen to the brothers and show them respect and try to really reflect, because it's very noisy. Do you agree? It's noisy. So let's just sit down, please. Our kids, let's sit down for a few minutes, inshallah. If you're not interested, take your food and you can go play outside. Simple. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. So, all these points right here are excellent points. But I want to just give you a little bit of a historical context for why we use the Hijri calendar. So in the Khilafah of Umar, radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, there's different narrations, but the end result is that they had to devise a system of a calendar, right? In order to be able to date things correctly, because there could cause some kind of confusion within the state on an administrative level, okay? And so, Umar radiallahu anhu asked the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what's the solution to this? You know, obviously this is one of those things where, you know, to me it's amazing. You have Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, who is one of the greatest administrative minds ever known. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, of course, top, but Umar radiallahu anhu is considered to be one of the greatest minds in administration. And so he's asking the companions what their opinion is. Hijrah and the Hijri calendar, to me, reminds me of the concept of shura, of asking. Even when you're at the head of the state, even when you're the one in charge, you still have to ask. So, number one, that's the lesson that I take away from Hijrah. Number two, why didn't they choose to go with what was known at that time, a'raf al-taqalid, the custom? You know, there was many methods of dating at that time. You had the Persian Empire, you had the Roman Empire. I mean, they could have basically said that, you know, we're going to start now, and we're at, the Hijrah itself was 640 something Gregorian. We're going to start at that point in time. Why did they look to themselves instead of looking at others for a dating system? Why weren't they following the rest of the world in what they're doing? And the simple answer is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught them better than that. He taught them to be leaders. He didn't teach them to be followers. And so they were happy with who they were. They were content with who they were. They were proud of what they stood for. And so they looked toward their own history. What in their history could they pick out to date this calendar, to make this very big thing in terms of an administration decision? This is a very big thing. What is it within their history that they could pick out instead of the history of others? That's number one. And this teaches us that they are the ones who defined the order, not the other way around. They didn't go based on the orders of others. Of course, you know, peacetime and you know, resolution of conflicts, etc., etc. That didn't prevent them from working with others. But the idea was that we are going to define our history. So the next question comes to, what about their history could they pick? Why didn't they pick, for example, the birthday of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I mean, that's a significant day. Why didn't, for example, they pick the death of Rasulullah? And the very simple answer is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam always taught them and reaffirmed to them that he is like them. Yes, he is the messenger of Allah. Yes, he is the beloved of Allah. Yes, he's the best creation. However, at the same time, his fate is the same fate as theirs. إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You're going to die, and they're going to die. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله. He wasn't the father of anybody, of your men, but he was the messenger of Allah, وخاتم النبيين. He was the final seal. And so he taught them to not revere the person as much as revering the idea. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam didn't bring just a simple idea. He brought the concept of justice, this new order. When he left Mecca to Medina, it wasn't because an issue of persecution. It was because he was going to establish the higher order. That was the day that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam declared that humanity is going to be free. And they're not going to be subjected to the rules of others. As one of the companions said, that we came when the Muslim army was in Persia and they were going to face off with Persia, said that we came basically to take people away from the worshipping of the servants to the worship of Allah, and from the treachery and from the dhulm of the injustice of religions to the mercy of Islam and to the justice of Islam. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught them to revere. And this is a concept, ya ikhwan, we have to really keep in the back of our minds, because a lot of times when we see someone who we love and we revere and we want to be like them, when that person is no longer around, it causes obviously a very deep, hurt inside of people that this person is no longer around. But just as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed away, came Abu Bakr, and he came Umar, then came Uthman and Ali, and so on and so forth. That didn't prevent them from showing their love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because they copied and imitated him in everything. But at the end of the day, they knew that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was a human just as they were. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we've listened to so many beautiful things, and my brother and I, are going to take a different approach from a different aspect of those people who were around during the time of Hijrah. And that is through the eyes of the youth, of the Muslims, and of the people in large during this time. And while my brother will provide a beautiful example, I wanted to provide a look into the mindset of what the youth had during this time. Keep in mind that the Hijrah came right after one of the most prime and perfect examples of peaceful protest ever done. A lot of times we attribute it to the respected Muhammad Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., but the Prophet ﷺ, in the midst of a people who were jagged, backwards, barbaric, the bloodshed was not uncommon. He promoted a social change to something that was better, and did that through peace, did that through demonstrations and through talking, and not by physical violence or by inciting violence. So in that sense, that's the first step in the mindset that the youth have when we're talking about Hijrah. And the Hijrah itself, as was mentioned, is the literal embodiment of moving from something that was sick or something that was terrible for you to something that's much better. And in that sense, especially for youth, and I'm saying that from personal experience and to the youth who are in the audience today, this is asking you a difficult task. It's something, when somebody has accepted Islam and they've been an adult, they normally do it because they've already seen something that was bad. They've already done something that was bad. And they look at Islam and they tell themselves that this is something that helps to better my life. This is a better way of living. There is nothing about what I used to do before that warrants staying like that. Islam is a true path that I should follow. But when you are either born into Islam or you've accepted Islam as a young person, you're telling yourself and you're accepting the fact that you're going to live your life according to a code without having committed those mistakes or trying to avoid them entirely. So, in that sense, what I'm trying to say is that the Hijrah, for the time of the youth, is embodiment of a courage that you can't necessarily have unless you are a youth. That you are saying that, no, I'm not going to do this or that. I'm going to be a model person. I'm going to follow the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the best of my ability, and I'm going to do that righteously.
A lot of the times we hear, and a lot of the adults say this, they say the youth are the leaders of the next generation. But to me, that statement needs to be changed. The youth are not going to be the leaders, they already are the leaders. And that is the main lesson we learned from Ali radiallahu anhu. From the time that he accepted Islam, he was a really young boy. He wasn't even a youth yet, he was preteen. He was like 12 years old, he was very young. But what we learned from Ali radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him to stay in his bed and to clothe yourself with my mantle, it wasn't an easy task. Knowing that there's going to be the strongest men from each tribe, and they're going, well, their intention is to kill me, but you're going to be in my bed. That isn't an easy task. And the Prophet ﷺ reassured him and he said, you will not be harmed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to protect you. But even with that, that is still a very difficult task to carry on, because it is a possible moment of death for him. They could possibly kill him, because that is their intention. But even with that, Ali radiallahu anhu had the faith with him. He knew that the one that was protecting him was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he took on that task willingly. He wasn't hesitant to take on that task. And he did, and he succeeded. And after the Quraysh found out that the Prophet ﷺ had left, they took Ali radiallahu anhu and they interrogated him. And this is another lesson we learned, because they weren't able to take anything out from him. He didn't reveal anything. And they asked him, where are the Prophet ﷺ and his friend? Where are Abu Bakr? And he told them, I don't know. And that wasn't a lie, because he didn't know which path they took. He didn't know which way they took. But this is the intelligence of Ali radiallahu anhu. He had that much faith, and he knew that he had to protect his faith. And he wasn't going to be afraid by the leaders of Quraysh, and he stood on that, and he didn't reveal anything about the Prophet ﷺ. And while doing that, while laying in the Prophet ﷺ's bed, and standing up against the Quraysh, he was still able to do the task the Prophet ﷺ ordered him to do. The Prophet ﷺ told him that these are the valuables of these people, and you have to return it to the people who own them. And Ali radiallahu anhu, even through all that hardship, he still came back and he still did what the Prophet ﷺ ordered him to do. He returned exactly to whom the value belonged. He returned it to everyone. And he managed to meet, and he went and he met the Prophet ﷺ, and he too left his home. And he also had to leave, like all the other Sahabas and the companions, his whole life behind in Mecca, and he migrated. But what we learn from this is that Ali radiallahu anhu, he not only risked his life, but he risked every single thing, because he knew that what was waiting in the akhirah for him was better. And that is the main lesson we learn. That although he was a youth, he was one of the reasons that made the hijrah possible. He took on the initiative of staying in the Prophet ﷺ's bed. He took on the initiative of returning everyone's wealth back to them, and still managing to make it back to the Prophet ﷺ and feeding him with Medina. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, very beautiful lessons and reflection that we are having tonight. We will open the floor, but I will humbly ask that if we can keep it to a few seconds or a minute at maximum, if you have anything to share with us, inshallah, as far as what hijrah means to you, the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. Hijrah was approximately in the 11th year of the start of Islam. It's a midway of establishing the biggest nation on earth and establishing Islam. My question regarding the topics, if you want to have an MD, you go 7 years, have an MD. Engineer 5 years, or whatever. Why can't we repeat the process that Rasulullah made in 23 years? Why can't we, in 23 years before Sheikh Amr reach 55, we should have a biggest nation on earth? This is the roadmap for success, to go to Jannah, to get success in life, for everything. And the ulama, we have the ulama enough. They have enough Muslims on the face of the earth. Why can't we repeat this process? Rasulullah for 23 years only, he was not favored by Allah. He was almost defeated in one, punished, suffered, but Allah could make him very successful by his finger. He just make like that, everything happens. But he had the one who followed his footsteps and believed in him was very successful. Why can't we repeat that? And we have all the end of the knowledge. At that time, Umar Khattab did not know much of the Quran. Was the Quran not finished yet? When he started in Medina, when he started the So anybody can comment on that?
Inshallah. Yes. So we need to get as many people as possible. So again, let's keep the questions and the answers. Sure.
Yes, brother, the answer is very simple. We say all good things, we do all kind of things, but our amal, the real intention, the amal is bad. We don't do the right amal, and that's why God is punishing us. If our amal improves and we become good Muslims, then there's nothing that can stop us. It's just that we say a lot of lip service, good things, but deep inside our heart, our amals are not good. So unless you fix that, there's no way you can reach to the top of the world.
But let's highlight something that's very important in here. Muslims will not reach to the top and stay at the top forever. Otherwise, there are so many wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will never be achieved. They will go up, and then the curve will go down again, up and down again. The real question is where we are and what are the direction of our efforts as far as helping the Muslims go up or go down. Do we participate at large with our actions for Muslims to go up or go down? This is the question. But it's going to always reach the top and it's going to come to the bottom again. Abu Bakr, the Prophet will die salam, and the Ummah will suffer so much until Abu Bakr bring it up again. At the time of Uthman, it will go down, as I highlighted in the khutbah, and then it will come back again. Later on with the Crusaders, with the Tatars, and it will always come back again. And inshallah, it will come back again very strong at the hands of the youth and sincere Muslims, inshallah. So anybody from the sisters, from the brothers, want to share anything with us before we move on? Yes, sure.
Number 23 is not like Sharia to be followed. It happened that in 23 years, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam achieved his goal and the message is being over and he died, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's not Sharia, it has to be followed 23. It could happen to you 50, it could be happen. This is the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you follow whatever you need to be doing, you get things. But if he done it in 23, doesn't mean that everyone should follow and everyone should have 23 to be achieving that. So you understand what I'm saying? The number is not like a tashri' pain, the specific number that 23, everyone, if you don't do it in 23, then you know.
Any sisters? Any brothers? Okay, let me summarize. Abdullah, you want to say something?
Hijrah is a very big thing in Islam. If the Rasul didn't do Hijrah, there was going to be no Islam. It shaped the whole Islam. And even though it was so hard for the Rasul to go to Medina, he still did it and he believed in himself.
Takbir. MashaAllah. Let me summarize what we... Yes.
And always say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
In the khutbah, I mentioned that, as the President also said here, that the two things has to work together, the Hijrah and Nusra, like the two parts. I mentioned that seven youth come to Medina to buy Rasul, and they go back and they come back 70 and so on. So what's the process for them to increase the number? What's their method? Because we need to learn that.
Constant da'wah. They made da'wah and they kept doing it. And one point to highlight in our communities here, we're not going to go anywhere, outside of here. Because of the da'wah and because of the effort of the pioneers, who established the communities in the United States, and we have, many of them are here, you can tell the difference between the position of Muslims from, we're not talking too long ago, 1400 years ago, no, we're talking in the 70s, and then 80s, 90s, and then where we are right now. Back then, it was a dream to have a masjid. It was a dream, you know. This is how every community started, right? A few people come together and their dream is to get a room to pray in. Now we have so many masajid. And then it was a dream to have a school. And now we have so many Islamic schools. It was a dream to have, you know, some representation in the political arena or some other organization. Now we have many organizations. I'm not saying that we got it, we are there, we are at the top. No. But alhamdulillah, from 60s, 70s, 80s, we are improving. And inshallah, with the youth and with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the faith and who we are and what deen that we have, we will achieve the best, inshallah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. Brother Shokar?
I think only a few minutes.
No, just 1 minute.
I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this dunya a plain, level field for all the communities, for all mankind. And Muslims do not have an exception to claim the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. You do actions, you should speak louder than your words. What we do these days is make dua for me. And then I asked you to make dua for me, but myself, I wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and I don't do what I should be doing. So that's not the way to go. I think hijrah separates al-jamud, actions, and jamud, which is stasis. Yeah, it separates that. This is the lesson. Muslims wake up in the morning, they are active, they are supposed to be active all the time. They're supposed to go pray 5 times. They're supposed to be ready to migrate. This is a lesson. Hijrah is a lesson that speaks for itself, and hijrah separates us from the other communities, the other people, in the sense that we know how to react. We know if there is no scope or if there is al-jamud somewhere, we need to migrate and we need to take action to be able to succeed.
Jazakallah khairan. That's it, inshallah. I will summarize what we learned together and what we reflected on together. With Brother Khalid, Dr. Khalid, he was talking about planning. We need to plan everything in our life to get there, to get to the level of success. Dr. Yahya, establishing of the deen. The Prophet ﷺ moved on to Medina, migrated to establish for the new environment, to establish the deen. And we need to make hijrah every day from the wrong to the right, from the bad to the good. And we have those struggles every day. Brother Rashid, he talked about challenges and sacrifices, and the struggles will always be there. It's going to always be there. We have to make sacrifices and we have to struggle, so we will rise up like the Prophet ﷺ rised up in Medina and raised this generation after long suffering in Mecca. He also talked about the importance of the role of women into forming such a great history of Islam. They were part and parcel of Hijrah. The Nabi ﷺ, Asma radiallahu anha, being a young lady, and she was pregnant. She was also pregnant at this time, at the 7th month, and she was carrying the food and taking the long hike, and actually climbing the mountain to give the food for the Prophet ﷺ, and early on from the time of Khadija radiallahu anha. We moved on to Dr. Muhsin, and he talked about even though the Prophet ﷺ loved his city so much like a human being, like every single person of us, but Tawheed was so precious to him, and it was number one in his life that he was ready to give up and put aside this love for this city, not the love for the city, the staying in the city and moving on to Al-Madinah for Tawheed. Number 2 is the niyyah. We need to purify our intention, because even if you're doing such a great work, like hijrah. Without the right intention, it's not going to be accepted. And who is the muhajir? You can be a muhajir. Every single person can be a muhajir by abandoning the sins, abandoning the bad ways, and choosing to migrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the good things. Dr. Dubai, obviously he gave his qasida, mashallah, and enjoyed it so much. Dr. Abdul Rahim, he said hijrah is the hijrah of the heart. Not only the physical hijrah, but the hijrah that you make with your heart. You could be living wherever you are, but you move on to Allah, to His Messenger, to the Quran. Make hijrah with your heart. And in order for any hijrah to be successful, some people are migrating. There is muhajirin, and we have some people to support them. I see that very clear in the example of our brothers and sisters who accepted Islam. They made the hijrah. They took the long path of coming all the way against the current. But are we really giving them the nusrah and the support as we're supposed to? I hope so, inshallah. Let's give them the nusrah, because they have challenges with their families, with wherever they're coming from, because of their Islam, because they accepted Islam. I added this. But hijrah and nusrah both are needed. Dr. Musab Jazallah Khair, he said that the Prophet ﷺ, even though he was the leader and he was the Rasulullah ﷺ, yet he had to consult with everybody around him and work with everybody around him. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Muslims, there was a great significant lesson in Muslims choosing the date, the calendar system to adopt Tariq al-Hijri, because of the idea and the principle and how important it was for all of them. It was not by individuals, by the birth or the death of the Prophet ﷺ, but by the idea and the commitment to the principle. Amongst other lessons that he talked about. Brother Yusuf, he talked about the youth mindset at this time, and Nabi ﷺ shaped it in such a way that he will make all the change in the peaceful way. He adopted the peaceful trend ﷺ to guide people, and that's what he did ﷺ. Up until he migrated, there was no qital, and even after he migrated, there was no qital, no fighting. The first order that came is, you can now defend yourself. If they fight against you, you can defend yourself, and later on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them also that they have to stand hard and establish their religion. So he took the peaceful trend sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in establishing his own. Hussein talked about the youth being leaders, and he talked about the bravery of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu and the aman of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu at the end, and how the Prophet ﷺ trusted him. I am adding this. How did the Nabi ﷺ appointed him to be there, and later on to give the amanat, the trusts back to the people. He appointed this young person at this important event to be in such a position. I add my, I'm really, for a couple of days now thinking about hijrah being a hope. And I talked about this in the khutbah, and I'm still repeating and confirming that. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah gave him hope by opening a new environment and a new way for him in Medina. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave all Muslims hope in there. And inshallah, in the conditions we live in nowadays, you know how much frustration that we have, seeing so many Muslims being killed, or Muslims are not getting uniting as they're supposed to, but we see the hope is there. And Muslims still pray. Muslims still talk about hijrah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam here and elsewhere. Muslims still go make hajj. Muslims still believe in the same thing. And one day we will get together, all of us, inshallah. You want to add anything? Okay, enough. This is to wake you up. Let's conclude by the famous nasheed that the people of Medina received Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And let me take you in there. Literally, I need your emotions and your attention, and I need you to really live this moment. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it took him a few days. Few days ago, he was persecuted. People were chasing him to kill him. You can imagine the psychology, where he's coming from. He was so calm, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but he left his city behind him, and he was about to cry. He was literally crying. And the ayah came to him, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ هِيَ أَشَدُّ قُوَّةً مِّن قَرْيَتِكَ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَتْكَ أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ فَلَا نَاصِرَ لَهُمْ. How many cities and villages that chased the prophets out and we destroyed them. Don't worry, we take care of you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing this ayah as support for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came from that environment, from that jaw atmosphere into the first step that he is taken into Medina is what? People are waiting for him every day. They go early in the morning until the sun rises up. Just look in the desert, anybody is coming, people cannot wait to see that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming. And finally he came. And now the new day and the new era in his life sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the people are receiving him with this nasheed. Let's say it together because all of us would know it. طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع جئت شرفت المدينة مرحبا يا خير داع أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع جئت شرفت المدينة مرحبا يا خير داع مرحبا يا خير داع مرحبا يا خير داع. I want to leave you with that. Imagine that the Prophet ﷺ just came in. No Sufis or anything, but just imagine. He comes in and we live in that. Imagine that we were there with them. And he is going, the Naqa is going. And probably I'm guessing that every single person of us, including myself, I would love that Muhammad ﷺ would come to my house. I would take him to my house. Maybe I don't have a place for him, but I would love for him to come to my house. Imagine that the Nabi ﷺ is coming and you, when the company of the Prophet ﷺ and his naqa, his camel, chose to come to your house by the permission of Allah, and imagine that company. Rasul ﷺ is with you. How are you going to behave tonight? And maybe tomorrow, and maybe after tomorrow, if he is going to spend a week with you or something. If Rasul ﷺ is not there, and he is not there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. So let's live those moments, go back into time and live. Rasul ﷺ was in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, him and his wife. Imagine he is at your house. What will you do? We conclude by this, inshallah. And I know that you may have a lot of things, but this is going to be the last thing. Dr. Zakir, okay?
Assalamu alaikum. We are so happy that your camel stopped here.
Okay, جزاكم الله خير. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us take the best of the hijrah and learn it and implement those lessons in our life, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. And I'm not sure, maybe we still have some refreshments in there. Give us a hand also to move the chairs, inshallah. Thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. I thank the speakers, everybody for joining us.